"You're getting me all wet," she whispered. The rancher heated her up in ways she never imagined. The rain fell in thick, heavy sheets over the rugged landscape of the frontier planet. Streams of water raced down the cliffs, carving paths through the red soil, and the wind whipped around the jagged rocks with a fury that could make even the strongest human stumble. Somewhere in this chaos, Lyra struggled to keep her balance, her boots sliding against the muddy ground as she clutched her surveying equipment close to her chest. Her mission had seemed simple at first: map the nearby terrain for the new colony and take notes on potential sites for habitation. But the storm had turned her task into a battle for survival. Lightning cracked across the darkened sky, and the roar of the thunder echoed across the valley, mingling with the splashes of her footsteps. She cursed under her breath. The planet was beautiful, yes, with its red cliffs, green mosses, and strange violet flowers dotting the slopes, but its wildness was unmatched. The colonists who lived near the base station had warned her about sudden storms, but she had brushed them off as exaggerations. Now she understood. A crack of lightning illuminated a narrow path, and Lyra saw the edge of the cliff she had almost reached. One misstep here would send her tumbling down a slope she wasn't sure she could survive. Her heart pounded in her chest. She needed shelter, and she needed it fast. Suddenly, a shout cut through the storm. "Hey! Careful there! Watch your step!" The voice was human, strong, and steady, carrying over the sound of the wind and rain. Lyra froze, peering into the downpour. For a moment she saw nothing but shadows and sheets of water. Then a figure emerged from the rain, a tall, rugged man wearing a waterproof jacket and heavy boots, moving with the surety of someone who knew every inch of this dangerous terrain. The man's eyes locked on hers, concern written across his face. He didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, he grabbed her arm just as she lost her footing. She slid forward, but he held firm, planting his feet against the slick soil. "Whoa, gotcha! Easy now," Lyra gasped, her heart still racing. "Thank you," she stammered, gripping his arm. She was soaked through, shivering from the cold rain. Her equipment, normally light, now felt like a heavy weight. "Name's Cade," he said, his voice calm and reassuring despite the storm. "You shouldn't be out here alone. Storms like this can turn deadly in minutes." Lyra nodded, trying to steady her breathing. I thought I could make it back to the station. I didn't realize." The storm, her words trailed off as another crack of thunder shook the ground. Cade gave a small nod, understanding. "You're lucky I was nearby. Come on, follow me. There's a sheltered cave not far from here. You'll be safe there." He led her down a narrow path, careful of each step, his knowledge of the terrain obvious. Lyra followed, grateful for his presence. She had never met this man before, but there was something about his confidence and calmness that made her feel safe. As they moved, the storm raged around them, wind tearing at their clothes and rain soaking them to the bone. But Cade didn't falter. He moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the cliffs and the rushing water, always alert. Lyra couldn't help but marvel at his skill. Humans were fragile compared to the alien creatures she had seen on this planet, yet here was one who seemed to command the wild with ease. Finally, they reached the mouth of a small cave hidden behind a waterfall of rainwater. The cave was dry inside, the walls smooth and cool. Lyra collapsed onto a flat rock, shivering. Cade knelt beside her, producing a thick blanket from his backpack. "Here, wrap this around you," he said. "You're soaked to the bone. You'll catch your death if you stay like this." Lyra took the blanket, grateful, and wrapped it around herself. "Thank you," she said again, her voice soft but sincere. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Cade shrugged, brushing rainwater from his hair. Humans survive by helping each other. You do the same for me. Lyra smiled faintly, impressed by his humility. I hope I would. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the storm pounding outside the cave. Lyra glanced at Cade, curious about the man who had just saved her life. So,
You're a rancher, right? That's what the station said about you.
but how do you survive out here alone? Cod chuckled. It's not easy, that's for sure. But you learn to read the land, understand the animals, and respect the storms. You can't fight the planet, Lyra. You learn to work with it. Makes you stronger, smarter. Ah, Lyra nodded thoughtfully. She had spent her life in controlled environments, labs and stations, dealing with calculations and machines. But this raw, untamed world, was a different kind of challenge. She could see now why Kade was so impressive. He wasn't just strong, he was clever, resourceful, and adaptable. Her admiration grew as he explained how he managed his ranch. Unlike Earth ranches, his livestock were a mix of human-engineered animals and native alien creatures. They required constant attention, protection from the planet's predators, and clever use of technology to survive. Cod combined traditional ranching knowledge with innovative tools he built himself. You make it sound easy, Lyra said, smiling despite herself. But I can see it's not. You've got to be on your toes all the time. You get used to it, Kade replied. Humans have always survived in tough places. From deserts to mountains, storms to floods, we adapt. That's what makes us strong. Lyra considered his words. She had always known humans were resilient, but seeing it in action here on the frontier made it real. It wasn't about physical strength alone. It was courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to face danger head-on. The conversation was interrupted by a distant roar. Lyra's eyes widened. What was that? Cade stood, peering toward the storm outside. Could be a pack of the local predators. They're usually scared off by the rain, but he trailed off, scanning the horizon. We'll stay put for now. Better safe than sorry. Lyra nodded, heart racing. Even inside the cave, the storm outside reminded her how small and vulnerable she really was. But beside her, Cade remained calm, unshaken. His confidence was infectious. She realized that humans could thrive even in the harshest conditions because of this combination of knowledge, bravery, and adaptability. As the hours passed, the storm showed no signs of letting up. Lyra and Katie shared stories to pass the time, his about life on the frontier, hers about the scientific work at the station. They discovered a shared sense of curiosity about the planet, a desire to explore, understand, and overcome challenges. By the time the storm finally began to ease, Lyra felt a newfound respect for humans, and for this man in particular. Cod had not only saved her life, but had also shown her the potential of human ingenuity in a world far harsher than Earth. When the rain finally stopped, Cade led her out of the cave. The landscape glistened under the weak sunlight, streams of water reflecting the crimson cliffs. Birds with iridescent feathers flew across the sky, and strange plants glistened with droplets of water. The frontier world was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. And humans, she realized, were perfectly equipped to face it. Ready to head back? Cade asked, his voice warm but firm. Lyra took a deep breath, looking at the terrain. Yes, she said, determination settling in her chest. Let's go. I want to see everything this place has to offer. And I want to learn how humans survive out here the right way. Cade smiled. That's the spirit. Stick with me and you'll learn more than you ever imagined. As they walked toward the station, Lyra couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. The storm had been terrifying, yes, but it had also shown her something incredible. Humans could adapt, survive, and thrive in places no one else could, and she was ready to be part of it. The storm had left the frontier planet sparkling under the morning sun. Water dripped from the crimson cliffs and pooled in small streams, reflecting the violet flowers and alien grasses that clung stubbornly to the soil. Lyra and Katie trudged along the muddy paths toward his ranch, each careful step reminding them how treacherous the terrain could still be after the storm. Lyra's boots squelched in the mud, and her clothes were damp, but the sunlight felt warm against her skin. She glanced at Cade, who moved ahead with confidence, navigating roots, rocks, and slick mud as though the storm had never happened. Every so often, he extended a hand to steady her over a particularly slippery incline. "You make it look easy," she said, struggling to keep her footing. Cod chuckled. "It's not. You just learn to trust yourself and the land. You read it, listen to it, and it tells you what to do." Lyra nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand. This was more than survival. It was harmony. Humans had always adapted to harsh environments on Earth, but seeing it here, on a planet that was utterly alien, made it almost miraculous. As they moved forward, a low growl echoed from the trees. Lyra froze, looking toward the dense alien vegetation. Strange creatures with sleek, iridescent hides emerged from the underbrush, sniffing the air. They were similar to large deer, but with long, curved horns that glimmered like crystal. Cade knelt behind a rock, motioning for Lyra to do the same. "Stay calm. They're curious, not aggressive, usually. But this storm has them hungry and nervous." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. With a flick of a switch, it emitted soft pulses that confused the creature's senses, keeping them at a distance. The animals hesitated, then backed into the trees. "Wow," Lyra whispered. "You really are prepared for everything." Kade smiled. "You adapt or you don't survive out here. Humans are good at adapting." They continued their journey, and soon the ranch came into view. It was unlike any Earth ranch Lyra had ever imagined. The fences were reinforced with alien metals and glowing energy lines that kept the livestock contained safely. Creatures of all sizes grazed in the fields. From domesticated alien animals to hybrid species Cade had engineered himself. A large barn, built partially from native stone and partially from salvaged spaceship parts, stood proudly in the center. Smoke rose from a chimney, promising warmth and food. "This is incredible," Lyra said, stepping closer. "I never imagined humans could manage something like this on a planet like this." Kade shrugged modestly. "It took time. You learn by doing and by making mistakes. But it's worth it. Out here, you rely on brains more than anything. Brute strength only goes so far." They entered the barn, and the warmth immediately enveloped them. The smell of hay mixed with the earthy scent of the animals, creating a comforting, familiar feeling. Kadi set down his pack and led Lyra to a small table where he offered a steaming cup of tea. Lyra took it gratefully, savoring the warmth. "I don't think I've ever needed this much after a storm," she said, smiling. Cade chuckled. "You'll get used to it. Out here, a cup of tea can feel like a feast, but there's work to do. You want to see what makes humans strong? Watch and learn." Lyra's curiosity sparked. She followed him out to the fields where the first real challenge of the day awaited. Several hybrid livestock creatures had wandered close to a weakened fence. The storm had damaged part of the barrier, and if the creatures got out, they could be lost, or worse, attract predators. "Watch this," Kade said. He pulled a tool from his belt, a simple handheld device he had built himself. With a few adjustments, it emitted pulses that guided the animals back toward the safety of the pen. He worked quickly, repairing the fence while keeping the animals calm. Lyra watched in awe. Humans were clever. Even in situations that seemed impossible, they found solutions. Cade combined quick thinking, knowledge of the land, and small inventions to handle problems that no alien technology could solve. "Can I try?" Lyra asked, intrigued. Cade handed her the device. "Go ahead. Remember, think, don't panic. Watch the animals, read their movements, and guide them gently." Lyra took a deep breath and followed his instructions. The first few attempts were awkward. She accidentally startled one of the creatures, sending it skittering sideways. But Cade remained calm, guiding her through adjustments. Soon, she was able to direct the animals back into the pen with ease. "You're a natural," Cade said, smiling.
See, humans are built for this.
"We adapt fast when we need to." Lyra laughed, feeling a surge of pride. She had always thought her strength lay in knowledge and study. But here, hands-on, in the thick of survival, she realized human ingenuity was as much about action as it was about thought. As they finished securing the fence, a sudden shout came from the edge of the property. A herd of wild alien predators, wolf-like creatures with glowing eyes and long, sharp claws, were heading toward the ranch. The hybrid livestock froze in fear. "Stay behind me," Cade said. "We'll handle this." He pulled another device from his belt, this one larger and more complex. With a few quick adjustments, it projected a protective energy barrier around the livestock, keeping the predators at bay. But the creatures were smart. They circled, testing the barrier for weaknesses. Lyra's heart pounded. This was real danger, not just theory or simulation. "What do we do?" she asked, gripping his arm. "Think, adapt, act," Cade said calmly. "Watch the land, watch the creatures, find their weakness." He studied their movements, then gestured toward a nearby slope. "Use the terrain," he instructed. "We can guide them away with this path. Humans are clever. They can use anything around them." Working together, they herded the predators toward the slope using pulses from the devices and carefully timed noises. The creatures followed instinctively, unaware that they were being guided. Finally, with one last push, the predators fell into a small gorge, trapped but unharmed. Lyra exhaled, her heart still racing. "That was incredible," she said. "I've never seen anything like that." Cade nodded, wiping mud from his hands. "That's humans for you? Brains, courage, and adaptability. That's why we survive and thrive where others can't." As the sun climbed higher, the ranch returned to its calm state. The hybrid animals grazed peacefully again, and the energy barriers hummed softly, maintaining safety. Lyra felt a deep sense of awe. Humans weren't just survivors. They were problem solvers, creators, and protectors. Over the next few hours, Cade showed her more of the ranch's clever systems. He demonstrated how he harvested water from underground streams, used solar panels and salvaged ship parts to power his devices, and even taught her basic techniques to repair minor damages in machinery. Lyra absorbed it all, fascinated. By evening, she was exhausted but exhilarated. She had learned more in one day than she had for months at the station. She realized the HFY truth. Humans were extraordinary not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they were clever, adaptable, and willing to face challenges head-on. As they sat by a small fire, drinking tea and drying their clothes, Lyra looked at Cade with newfound respect. "You've shown me something today," she said softly. "Humans really can thrive anywhere, can't they?" Cade smiled, staring into the flames. "We can. We're clever, brave, and we'd never give up. Out here in the wild, that's what counts. And the best part, you can learn it too." Lyra nodded, feeling a spark of determination. She wasn't just a scientist anymore. She was a student of survival, a witness to human ingenuity in its purest form. The frontier was dangerous, unpredictable, and unforgiving, but she knew now that with humans leading the way, there was no challenge they couldn't face. And as the stars began to shine above the red cliffs, reflecting in the streams below, Lyra realized that this was only the beginning of her journey. Humans had the tools, the brains, and the courage to conquer this wild, alien world, and she intended to learn everything they could teach her. The next morning, the sun rose gently over Cade's ranch, painting the red cliffs with golden light. Lyra stepped outside, stretching her arms and taking in the fresh air. The storm from the previous day had left puddles glimmering in every dip of the land, and the alien flora sparkled with droplets of water. The ranch, now calm and orderly, looked peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos they had faced just 24 hours ago. Cade was already in the barn, checking the hybrid livestock. Lyra followed him, curious to learn more about the intricacies of the ranch. The creatures moved confidently, aware of their surroundings, showing a trust in Cade's guidance that made her marvel at his connection with them. "You've trained them well," she remarked. Cade smiled. "It's not just training. You understand the land, the creatures, and how everything interacts. They respond to your actions, your intentions. Humans aren't just survivors. We're thinkers. We observe, adapt, and guide. That's what keeps us alive in wild places like this." Lyra nodded, absorbing his words. The more she observed Cade and the ranch, the more she understood what he meant. This wasn't just about survival. It was about harmony with the environment, about using intelligence and creativity to thrive in a place where the planet itself seemed determined to challenge you. As they checked the fences and the animals, Lyra noticed something unusual. In the corner of the field, partially buried under mud and rocks from the storm, was a strange metallic object. It was smooth, with lines that glowed faintly blue, unlike anything she had seen before. "What is that?" she asked, pointing. Cade's eyes narrowed. I hadn't noticed it. Come on, let's take a closer look." They approached the object carefully. As they cleared the debris, Lyra realized it was some kind of alien device, partially embedded in the ground. It hummed softly, reacting to the movement of the earth around it. "Where did this come from?" Lyra asked, her curiosity piqued. "Was it buried in the soil before the storm?" Cade shrugged. "Could be. Storms like that can uncover things that have been hidden for centuries." He examined the device closely, tapping it lightly with a tool. It pulsed under his touch. "It's old, but it's not dead. This thing still has power." Lyra's mind raced. If this device was functional, it could explain some of the strange phenomena she had observed on the planet. The way certain areas reacted unpredictably after storms, the small tremors, and the strange energy readings the station had recorded. "Be careful," Cade warned. "We don't know what it does yet." Together, they lifted the device and carried it to the barn, placing it on a sturdy table. Lyra began examining it, noting the smooth metallic surfaces, the glowing lines, and the intricate symbols etched into the shell. "This technology, it's not human," she murmured. "It's advanced, but strange. Some of the systems seem self-repairing. It's almost alive in a sense." Cade nodded. "We've seen remnants of alien tech around the frontier. Most of it is buried or broken. But this could be important." As Lyra studied the device, it suddenly pulsed brighter, and the symbols shifted. A soft hum filled the barn, vibrating through the floor and the air around them. Lyra stepped back instinctively, feeling a mix of awe and caution. "It's responding to us," she whispered. Cade studied it carefully. probably sensing life nearby. Or energy. Humans emit energy too, in a way it can detect. We need to figure out what it wants. Lyra reached out slowly, tapping one of the symbols with her finger. Immediately, a small projection appeared above the device, a holographic map of the area surrounding the ranch. Lines of energy stretched across the land, connecting points she didn't recognize. Some of the points pulsed rapidly, almost like warnings. "What is this?" she asked. "A map? But it's showing energy lines? Some of these areas look unstable." Kadi leaned closer. "Could be old alien infrastructure. Maybe power sources, communication nodes, or defensive systems." The storm probably triggered a response. Lyra felt a thrill of excitement. This was more than survival now. They had stumbled upon something powerful, something humans could potentially understand and use. But the danger was real. If these systems were activated without knowing how they worked, they could harm the ranch or even the colony nearby. "We have to be careful," she said. "We don't know what will happen if we interact with this too much." Cade nodded. "Agreed. But humans are problem solvers. We don't run away. We study, we experiment, we adapt. That's how we survive." Over the next few hours, they carefully tested the device. Lyra used her scientific knowledge to understand the symbols, the energy pulses, and the reactions to their actions. Kade contributed his practical skills, improvising tools, and shielding to prevent the energy from spreading uncontrolled. At one point, a sudden pulse shot through the barn, knocking over equipment and startling the animals. Lyra instinctively grabbed a lever to stabilize the device, while Cade activated a temporary energy shield. Together, they prevented what could have been a disaster. "Humans really are something," Lyra said, breathing hard. "We think, we act, we adapt, and we survive things no one else could." Katie smiled. "Exactly. That's why humans thrive in places like this. Brains, courage, and quick action. Combine those, and nothing can stop us." As they continued to study the device, Lyra noticed patterns in the pulses. The storm had likely activated a network of these alien nodes across the frontier, and this one at the ranch was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. "This is incredible," she said. "If we could understand how these systems work, humans could control or at least predict the planet's energy patterns. That could protect the colony, even improve the ranch operations." Kade nodded. "But first, we survive. Then, we adapt. Then, we conquer problems that others would run from. Humans do this every time. We see danger, we face it, and we turn it to our advantage." The sun was high now, and the barn was filled with the hum of the device and the quiet rustling of animals. Lyra realized that she was seeing human ingenuity in action, not just in technology, but in strategy, observation, and courage. Kade had survived storms, wild creatures, and now potentially dangerous alien technology, all through clever thinking and quick action. By evening, they had partially deciphered the device, discovering that it was a kind of planetary monitoring system left by an ancient alien civilization. It tracked storms, tectonic movements, and other environmental changes. The recent storm had activated it, and now it pulsed with warnings and updates across the planet. "This is just the beginning," Lyra said, a sense of awe in her voice. "Humans can handle this. We always do. Even in the most dangerous, unpredictable environments, we find solutions." Cade nodded. "And that's why humans will always thrive, Lyra. Brains, courage, and persistence. That's the key to surviving on this world, and any world." As night fell, the ranch was quiet, but the energy of the device pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Lyra and Kade sat beside it, planning their next steps. The frontier was full of mysteries, dangers, and challenges. But humans had the one thing that mattered most: the ability to adapt, survive, and turn obstacles into opportunities. Lyra knew that this discovery was only the start. The planet held secrets that humans could unlock, and she was ready to learn, experiment, and survive alongside the best example of human ingenuity she had ever seen. As the stars twinkled above the ranch, she felt a surge of confidence. Humans had faced worse, survived longer, and adapted faster than any other species. And now, on this alien frontier, she was seeing it firsthand: brains, courage, and ingenuity triumphing over the unknown. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring more challenges, more puzzles, more danger. But with humans leading the way, nothing was impossible. The storm had revealed a secret, yes, but it had also revealed the true power of humanity. And that power was unstoppable. The morning sun cut through the mist, casting long shadows across Cade's ranch. The red cliffs glowed faintly under the early light, and small streams from yesterday's storm glittered in the valleys. Lyra stretched her arms, feeling both excitement and tension in her chest. The discovery of the alien device had changed everything. What had started as a routine survey had turned into a challenge no human had faced before. Cade was already at the edge of the fields, inspecting the hybrid livestock. His movements were calm, precise, and confident. Lyra admired how he never wasted a gesture, how his eyes seemed to notice everything: the slope of the land, the way a creature shifted its weight, the subtle changes in the air. Humans, she realized, had survived not just by strength, but by observation, thought, and action. "We need to finish analyzing the device," she said, moving toward the barn. "I think it's part of a larger system. The storm triggered some kind of planetary network." Cade nodded. "Then we do it. But first, we secure the ranch. If the system reacts to the environment, we need to make sure nothing here is at risk." They worked together, checking fences, reinforcing barriers, and making sure the livestock were safe. Cady used his inventions, small, portable energy shields and guidance devices, to protect the animals, while Lyra monitored the alien device's pulses. Suddenly, the device pulsed stronger than before, and Lyra's equipment beeped furiously. A map projected into the air above the device, showing energy spikes spreading across the valley and up the cliffs. "What's happening?" Lyra asked, eyes wide. Cade examined the projection carefully. "The storm triggered the network. It's reacting to environmental changes: floods, mudslides, tectonic shifts. Some of these spikes could damage the ranch, or worse, the colony nearby." Lyra felt a chill. The storm had already caused problems, but this was bigger than anything they had faced. If the network wasn't controlled, the device could unleash energy across the land, endangering humans, animals, and even the hybrid livestock. "We need a plan," she said, determination building in her voice. "We can't just wait for it to react. Humans have to take control." Katie nodded. "Exactly. Observe, adapt, and act. Humans survive this way. Let's start." They moved quickly. Lyra studied the energy pulses, noting patterns and rhythms in the network. Cade used his knowledge of the land and the ranch to predict how the environment would affect the network's response. Together, they began creating a plan: stabilize the device, redirect dangerous energy flows, and use the terrain to their advantage. The first challenge appeared almost immediately. A pulse shot from the device toward the lower fields where the hybrid livestock were grazing. The ground trembled, small rocks tumbling down the slopes. Lyra shouted to the animals, trying to herd them toward safety, but Katie intervened. Use the device, he shouted, handing her one of the portable energy guides. It can control minor flows, redirect it to the lower field. Lyra activated the guide, focusing on the pulsating energy. Slowly, the energy flow shifted, moving away from the livestock. The ground steadied and the animals calmed, their trust in the humans evident in their movements. "You're doing it," Cade shouted, a grin breaking across his face. Humans adapt fast. That's what makes us unstoppable. The next challenge came from above. Mudslides, triggered by the storm's rain, began to tumble down the cliffs, threatening to strike the barn. Kade and Lyra quickly assessed the slope. They couldn't stop the mud with brute force, but humans had brains. "We can guide it," Lyra said, eyes sparkling. "If we redirect the mud into the lower ravine, it won't hit the barn." Cod nodded. "Good thinking. Let's do it." Using temporary barriers, energy shields, and careful placement of rocks and debris, they guided the mudslide safely away. Lyra marveled at the combination of her scientific mind and Cade's practical ingenuity. Together, they solved problems that seemed impossible. Humans could survive and thrive where no one else could. But the device wasn't done yet. A sudden spike in energy pulsed through the barn, stronger than anything before. Lyra felt the table shake under the device. The projection above flickered violently, showing multiple points of unstable energy spreading toward the ranch. "We need to shut it down," she said urgently. "If we don't, the ranch could be destroyed." Cade studied the device, his fingers flying over his tools and controls. "It's not about shutting it down. It's about balancing it. We need to stabilize the network, redirect excess energy, and keep the environment safe. Humans can do this. We always find a way." They began working in tandem. Lyra analyzed the patterns, predicting where the energy would surge next. Cod reinforced shields, guided livestock, and adjusted the device's output. The barn shook, lights flickered, and the air hummed with power. But neither of them panicked. Humans thrived under pressure. They adapted. They acted. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky, and sweat ran down their faces, but they didn't stop. Lyra began to notice the pulses slowing, the network stabilizing under their guidance. The energy map above the device shifted from chaotic spikes to smooth flows. "We're doing it," she shouted, her voice filled with exhilaration. "The network is stabilizing." Cade grinned, giving her a quick nod. "See? Humans are clever, adaptable, unstoppable. We face danger, and we turn it into opportunity." Finally, after hours of careful adjustments and constant vigilance, the device settled. The energy flows returned to normal, the barn was safe, and the livestock grazed peacefully once more. Lyra exhaled deeply, her body trembling from exhaustion, but her mind was alive with excitement. She had just witnessed something incredible: humans taking control of an alien system, using brains, courage, and ingenuity to survive and protect everything they cared about. Cade leaned back against the barn wall, smiling faintly. "You see what I mean? Humans survive where others fail. We adapt. We solve problems. We take control of our environment and turn it to our advantage." Lyra nodded, awe shining in her eyes. "I see it. I've never felt so alive." Humans aren't just survivors. They're innovators, thinkers, problem solvers. Nothing can stop us if we work together. The day faded into evening, the sky painted with brilliant reds and purples. Lyra and Cade stood outside the barn looking at the ranch. Everything was intact. The devices hummed quietly, the livestock were safe, and the alien network was balanced. "This is more than just surviving a storm," Lyra said softly. "We've shown that humans can take on even the most unpredictable challenges and come out on top." Cade nodded. Exactly. Brains, courage, persistence. That's the HFY truth. Humans face danger, think their way through it, and adapt faster than anything else out there. Lyra smiled, feeling a surge of pride. She had started as a visitor, a scientist, merely observing. But now she was part of the action, part of the solution. Humans weren't just clever in theory, they were unstoppable in practice. As darkness fell, the stars shone brightly over the cliffs, reflecting in the puddles left by the storm. Lyra and Cade sat near a small fire, exhausted but triumphant. The frontier was dangerous, unpredictable, and full of challenges, but humans had faced it and prevailed. This device, Lyra said, looking at the glowing alien object, it could help us understand the planet completely. Humans can control what seems impossible. We adapt, we survive, and we thrive. Katie smiled faintly, watching the stars. That's why humans will always succeed. We don't just endure. We innovate. We think, we act, and we never give up. Nothing can stop us when we put our minds to it. Lyra nodded, filled with determination. The frontier was vast and full of mysteries, but she knew now that humans could handle anything. Storms, predators, alien technology. Everything could be met with ingenuity, courage, and collaboration. Tomorrow, the adventure would continue. But tonight, they celebrated a small victory, the triumph of human intellect, bravery, and persistence over chaos. The HFY truth had never been clearer. Humans were unstoppable even in the face of the unknown. And with that, Lyra knew that she had truly begun her journey. The frontier was a challenge, yes, but it was also an opportunity for humans to shine brighter than ever.